It was a quiet night in my small town, the kind where the stillness wraps around you like a blanket. I was sprawled on the couch, half watching a reality show I couldn't care less about, scrolling through my phone. The streetlights outside cast their usual yellow glow over the empty road, with only the occasional car humming by. I debated whether to cook dinner or just eat another bowl of dry cereal. The clock read 9:17 p.m. when my phone jolted to life, buzzing violently in my hand. A piercing emergency alert blared, making me flinch. The TV screen flashed red, cutting off the show mid-scene, and a robotic voice crackled through my radio, one I hadn't even realized was still plugged in. The message was everywhere: phone, TV, radio. Just 3 words: "We are sorry." No storm warning, no evacuation orders, nothing. Just that vague, chilling phrase. A cold shiver ran up my spine as I stared at the glowing words on my screen. Sorry for what? My heart picked up pace. I opened my messages and texted Ryan, my friend across town, "Did you get that?" His reply came instantly: "Yeah, what the hell does 'we are sorry' mean?" He thought it might be a test, but I wasn't so sure. I glanced outside, expecting chaos, people in the streets, a fire in the distance, but everything looked normal. The street was empty, the houses dark, their residents either asleep or unbothered. I turned up the TV. Flipping through channels. Reruns, talk shows, commercials, nothing about the alert. No breaking news, no explanations. I considered calling 911 or the non-emergency line, anyone who might know something. Then, a low rumble broke the silence. At first, I couldn't place it: machinery, maybe. The sound grew louder, deeper, like thunder rolling closer. Then it became unmistakable, the rhythmic chop-chop of helicopter blades slicing through the night. I rushed to the window, pushing the curtain aside. 2 black, unmarked helicopters swept low over the rooftops, their searchlights scanning the streets. Gliding over houses and parked cars. The beams briefly lit up my neighbor's yard, then my own, flooding the living room with harsh white light before plunging it back into shadow. My phone lit up with a text from Ryan: "You seeing this now?" I typed back quickly: "Yeah, helicopters over my street. Anything weird on your end?" His reply sent a chill through me: "Soldiers everywhere. Can't tell if they're normal, dressed in black, gas masks." Soldiers. I peered out again. Military vehicles rolled through the neighborhood, not police or National Guard, but something heavier, armored, matte black, almost absorbing the streetlight's glow. Dozens of soldiers in tactical gear moved alongside. Rifles in hand, splitting off toward houses. They weren't storming in, they knocked, almost politely. But something felt wrong. Very wrong. The eerie calm of the night shattered as the distant hum of machinery grew louder, morphing into the unmistakable thump-thump of helicopter blades slicing through the air. I stood frozen at my window, heart pounding, as 2 black, unmarked helicopters swooped low over the neighborhood. Their searchlights cut through the darkness, sweeping across rooftops, yards, and parked cars with cold precision. The beams grazed my neighbor's house, then mine, bathing the living room in a fleeting burst of white light before plunging it back into shadow. My phone buzzed with a message from Ryan: "You seeing this now?" I typed back. Fingers trembling: "Yeah, helicopters over my street. Anything weird on your end?" His response hit like a punch: "Soldiers everywhere. Can't tell if they're normal, dressed in black, gas masks." That I peered out again, squinting into the night. Military vehicles rolled slowly through the streets, not police cruisers or National Guard trucks, but something heavier, more menacing. Their matte black surfaces seemed to swallow the streetlight's glow, refusing to reflect it. Armored and hulking, they moved like predators, deliberate and unhurried. Dozens of soldiers in full tactical gear flanked them, rifles gripped tightly, their faces hidden behind gas masks. They moved with purpose, splitting into smaller groups and fanning out toward houses. I watched as 2 approached my neighbor Mr. Dawson's door. They knocked, calmly, almost politely, but the sight sent a chill down my spine. Something about their methodical precision felt unnatural, like a performance masking something sinister. Mr. Dawson, the old man next door, opened his door, his silhouette framed by the dim porch light. I couldn't hear their words, but his head tilted in confusion, then shook as if rejecting what they said. One soldier placed a firm hand on his shoulder. And after a tense pause, Dawson nodded reluctantly and stepped aside, letting them in. My stomach twisted. This wasn't a routine check, it was too quiet, too controlled. My phone buzzed again. Ryan's message read, "Power just went out." As if on cue, my house plunged into darkness. The lights flickered once, twice, then died. Streetlights, houses, even the military vehicles outside, all went black in an instant. I stood in the dark, my pulse hammering in my ears. Through the window, the soldiers didn't flinch. Their night vision goggles glowed faint green as they continued their work, moving house to house like shadows. This wasn't a random power outage, it was deliberate. A cold realization settled in, they didn't want us to see something. The air felt heavier now, charged with an unspoken threat. I gripped my phone, texting Ryan, "What's happening on your end?" No reply came. Outside, the soldiers' movements grew more urgent, their silhouettes darting between houses. Whatever they were here for, it wasn't to protect us. Something bigger was coming. The darkness that enveloped my house was suffocating, the power outage leaving only the faint green glow of the soldiers' night vision goggles outside. My heart raced as I stood by the window, gripping the sill, trying to make sense of the military's eerie presence. Then, a deep vibration pulsed through the ground, not the rumble of the armored vehicles or the hum of helicopters, but something heavier, unnatural, like the earth itself was trembling. It wasn't a sound at first, but a feeling, resonating in my chest, making my bones hum with unease. I pressed closer to the window, squinting into the shadows, my breath shallow. The helicopters circling above shifted their focus, their searchlights no longer sweeping the houses but scanning something in the distance, beyond the tree line. My phone buzzed in my pocket, Ryan's message, "Bro, I think we're in serious trouble." Before I could respond, the silence shattered. A deep, guttural roar tore through the night, unlike anything I'd ever heard. It wasn't a siren, a storm, or any animal I could name. The sound was primal, violent, vibrating through my ribcage, clawing at some instinct buried deep within me. I stumbled back, my hands shaking, clutching the windowsill to steady myself. Gunfire erupted outside, first a few sharp cracks, then a relentless barrage. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness like strobe lights, chaotic and disorienting. The helicopters dropped flares, bathing the streets in a pulsing red-orange glow. I caught glimpses of soldiers shouting commands, their movements frantic as they aimed at something massive. Something I couldn't yet see. The air grew thick with the acrid smell of gunpowder and burning metal. My phone buzzed again, but I ignored it, my eyes locked on the chaos unfolding outside. The roar came again, louder, closer, shaking the walls of my house. Whatever was out there wasn't just big, it was unstoppable. That I forced myself to move, grabbing my backpack, a flashlight, and a kitchen knife, my hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped it. My instincts screamed to run, to hide, but I needed answers. I texted Ryan, "We need to meet up." "Where are you?" His reply came seconds later, "Gas station." "Hurry." The gunfire outside intensified, punctuated by the sharp boom of grenades. The soldiers were fighting something, and they weren't winning. I glanced out the window one last time. The helicopter's flares illuminated the street, revealing glimpses of something enormous moving in the distance, too fast, too wrong for its size. My pulse hammered in my throat as I slung the backpack over my shoulder and headed for the door. The roar echoed again, closer now, rattling my teeth. Whatever was out there, it was coming for us, and staying here meant death. I stepped into the night, the air heavy with dread. The air outside was thick with the stench of gunpowder and blood, the streets bathed in the eerie red glow of flares from helicopters overhead. The guttural roar of the unseen beast still echoed in my chest as I gripped my backpack, flashlight, and kitchen knife, my knuckles white from the strain. My heart pounded, urging me to move. I texted Ryan one last time, "We need to meet up." "Where are you?" His reply came fast, "Gas station." "Hurry." I threw open the door and stepped into the chaos, the night alive with screams and gunfire. The once quiet town was unrecognizable, the air heavy with a metallic tang, the streets pulsing with panic. I stuck to the shadows, darting between houses to avoid the main roads where soldiers and their armored vehicles clashed with something monstrous. People ran blindly, some barefoot, others in pajamas, shoving past each other in a desperate scramble for safety. I kept low, my breath ragged, navigating the familiar backstreets of our small town. The distant roar came again, followed by a deafening explosion that shook the ground. My phone buzzed, but the screen showed no service. My last message to Ryan didn't send. I pushed forward, fear clawing at my throat, knowing the gas station was my only shot at finding him. When I reached the gas station, my stomach dropped. The building was a wreck, the roof partially collapsed, glass littered the parking lot, and a gas pump lay uprooted, its cables twisted like broken bones. It looked like a giant had smashed through. I scanned the ruins, my chest tightening. What if Ryan's under there? "Ryan!" I called, my voice hoarse, barely cutting through the distant gunfire and helicopter whir. For a moment, there was nothing but the chaos of the night. Then, a faint voice, "Over here." I vaulted over debris, heart racing, and found Ryan crouched behind the counter, shaking, his face pale under the flickering red light. Before I could speak, the ground trembled violently. A deep, unnatural vibration rattling the broken glass around us. The air grew heavy, charged with something sinister. Ryan grabbed my wrist, yanking me down beside him. "Don't move," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the distant carnage. The gas station shook, dust and shards trickling from the cracked ceiling. The roar came again, closer, louder, right outside. My pulse thundered in my ears as we pressed against the cold tile, the world narrowing to the sound of our shallow breaths. Whatever was out there was no longer distant, it was here. I didn't dare look, but Ryan's wide eyes told me he'd seen something that froze him in place. We were trapped, hiding in the wreckage. With nowhere left to run and the monster's presence suffocating the air around us, huddled behind the gas station counter, Ryan and I froze as the ground shook with the monster's approach. The air was thick with the stench of burnt fuel and blood, the red glow of flares casting eerie shadows. The deafening roar returned, so close it rattled my teeth. Every instinct screamed not to look, but Ryan's body stiffened beside me, his eyes wide with terror. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to peek over the counter, and what I saw stole my breath. The creature was massive, its form a grotesque patchwork of mismatched parts, as if stitched together from nightmares. Its body blended muscle, fur, scales, and bone into a horrifying whole. Countless insect-like legs, jointed unnaturally, bristled with thick, curved claws that glinted in the flare's red light. Its torso was broad, pulsating as if breathing through unseen slits, the flesh glistening wet in some areas, cracked and dry like withered skin in others. The face, if it could be called that, was a nightmare, a gaping mouth split open to reveal a second, inner jaw lined with jagged teeth. Its eyes were a chaotic array, some glowing with an unnatural light, others empty sockets. And some facing entirely wrong directions, twitching independently. Despite its size, the creature moved with terrifying grace, darting between buildings with barely a sound, its claws skimming the ground. Soldiers on the street below unleashed a barrage of machine gun fire, high-caliber rounds, and grenades, the explosions lighting up the night. The noise was deafening, each bullet's crack like a whip, each grenade's boom shaking the gas station's crumbling walls. Dust and smoke choked the air, but the creature didn't falter. It tore through the soldiers like they were paper, its claws slicing through body armor as if it were butter. One soldier tried to flee, the monsters elongated. Sickly arms snatched him, crushing him with a sickening crunch, like a wet sack bursting that a missile streaked from an armored vehicle, striking the creature directly. The explosion engulfed it in fire and debris, and for a moment, I thought it might be over. But as the smoke cleared, it stood untouched, its cracked skin revealing something black and writhing beneath, almost alive. Its eyes flickered, adjusting, as if learning from the attack. Ryan grabbed my arm, his face pale, whispering, "We need to get out of here." His voice trembled with hopelessness. The gunfire ceased briefly, the creature had vanished into the shadows, but the silence was worse. The air felt charged, heavy with dread. The soldiers' bodies lay scattered, their weapons useless, bent like toys. The monster wasn't just unstoppable, it was something beyond comprehension, a living horror that defied nature. We crouched, hearts pounding, knowing it was still out there, waiting, its presence a suffocating weight on the ruined town. The gas station's ruins trembled around us, the air thick with dust and the acrid stench of gunpowder and blood. Ryan and I crouched behind the counter, hearts pounding, as the monster's roar faded into an eerie silence. The streets outside were a graveyard of soldiers and civilians. Their bodies twisted and broken under the flickering red glow of flares. We needed to move, staying here meant death. I whispered to Ryan, "We have to go. If we look like them, we might slip through." I gestured to the fallen soldiers, their gear scattered across the pavement. The plan was desperate: blend in, pretend to be part of the military, and find a way out. We crawled over shattered glass, reaching the street. I knelt beside a soldier's body, his gas mask intact, his rifle half buried in debris. He was gone, his chest still. I grabbed his vest, pulling it on, the weight heavy against my shaking frame. Ryan hesitated, staring at another soldier's body, his hands trembling. "Ryan, grab something," I hissed. His eyes darted, wide with panic, as he reached for a vest but froze, his breath hitching. The distant gunfire had stopped, replaced by an unnatural quiet that pressed against my eardrums. Then, a massive thud shook the ground, the monster landing nearby with impossible speed, its insect-like legs skittering across the ruins. Gunfire erupted again, soldiers scrambling to engage the creature. Their shouts were drowned by the chaos of automatic fire and explosions. Ryan's face went white, his body rigid. I saw the moment his instincts took over, fight or flight, and he chose flight. He dropped the vest, bolted upright, and sprinted into the smoke-filled darkness, his footsteps pounding against the pavement. "Ryan!" I shouted, but he was gone, swallowed by the haze and shadows. I had seconds to decide: chase him and risk death or save myself. The air shuddered as the monster's roar tore through the night, closer now, its claws slashing through soldiers with horrifying ease. I dove behind an overturned armored vehicle, my lungs burning, the smell of oil and blood choking the air. Another explosion rocked the street, the heat searing my face. The soldiers were firing everything: machine guns, rockets, but the creature didn't slow. It hadn't come my way, giving me a fleeting chance. Guilt clawed at me, but I couldn't think about Ryan now. I checked the soldier's uniform I'd taken: no helmet, no mask, but it might be enough. The military barricades were my only hope, a way out of this nightmare. I sprinted the opposite direction from Ryan, the world a blur of fire and destruction. Behind me, the monster's screeches and the soldiers' screams faded, but the weight of leaving Ryan behind pressed heavy on my chest. I ran, knowing survival was all I had left. My lungs burned as I sprinted through the ruined town, the soldier's uniform heavy on my shoulders, the rifle slung awkwardly across my back. The air reeked of oil, blood, and gunpowder, the streets a chaotic blur of fire and darkness under the red glow of flares. The monster's roars echoed behind me, each one a jolt to my racing heart, followed by bursts of gunfire and deafening explosions. I didn't look back, couldn't afford to. My legs ached, but I pushed forward, driven by the faint hope of reaching the military barricade on the main road out of town. The checkpoint came into view, a makeshift fortress of sandbags, barbed wire, and armored vehicles bathed in harsh floodlights. Soldiers swarmed the area, some manning mounted machine guns, scanning the tree line, others rushing between vehicles, barking orders, and dragging crates of supplies. Their faces were grim, exhausted, bloodied, some bandaged, others staring vacantly, shells of themselves. I slowed my pace, forcing my ragged breaths to steady. If I approached looking like a panicked civilian, they'd turn me away or worse. I adjusted the rifle, wiped sweat from my brow, and walked toward the checkpoint, trying to mimic the soldier's purposeful stride. A young soldier spotted me, raising his rifle. "Stop right there!" he shouted. I froze, hands raised slightly, careful not to move too fast. "I'm with the ground unit near Lincoln Avenue," I lied, my voice hoarse. "We got separated when that thing hit us. I'm trying to reach the checkpoint." His eyes narrowed, his grip tightening. "ID," he demanded. My stomach twisted, I had none. "Lost it in the fight," I said, wincing as if injured. "Got thrown when that thing flipped our truck. Blacked out, came to alone, and made my way here." A second soldier, older, more seasoned, stepped forward, sizing me up. "Call sign?" he asked. My mind raced, searching for a believable answer. Before I could respond, the ground shook violently. Gravel skittering across the pavement. The floodlights flickered, and a radio crackled. "It's moving on the checkpoint. All units, prepare to engage." The soldiers' faces paled, eyes wide with dread. The older one snapped, "Get in the goddamn truck, now." I didn't hesitate, leaping into the back of a transport, squeezing between soldiers clutching loaded weapons. The truck lurched forward, tires screeching as the convoy sped out of town. I glanced back, heart pounding. The skyline was ablaze, buildings collapsing, helicopters launching missiles in rapid succession. The monster's screeches pierced the chaos, its massive form barely visible through the smoke. The soldiers sat in tense silence, their faces etched with fear. I gripped the stolen rifle, guilt and relief warring within me. The checkpoint faded behind us, and with it, the town I'd called home, now a battlefield I'd barely escaped. The military truck roared forward, tires screeching as we sped away from the checkpoint, the town's skyline a hellish tableau of fire and ruin. I clung to the edge of the transport, squeezed between soldiers whose faces were masks of grim silence. The air was thick with the stench of burning fuel and blood, the red glow of flares replaced by the orange blaze of collapsing buildings. Helicopters hovered above, their rotors a relentless thrum, launching missiles that tore through the streets below. Each explosion sent shockwaves through the truck, the heat prickling my skin even from this distance. Behind us, the monster's deafening screech cut through the chaos, its massive, insect-like limbs propelling it forward with unnatural speed, its patchwork body pulsing under the firelight. Gunfire erupted from every direction, mounted turrets, rocket launchers, incendiary rounds, all aimed at the creature. It didn't falter, tearing through the barrage with terrifying ease, its cracked skin revealing a writhing black mass beneath. A helicopter swooped low, firing 2 precision missiles. The explosion engulfed the monster in a fireball, debris raining down, and for a fleeting moment, I hoped it was over. But through the smoke, it emerged, unscathed, its mismatched eyes flickering as it charged faster. The truck jolted as another shockwave hit, nearly throwing me off. The soldiers gripped their weapons tighter, their silence heavier than the gunfire. Then, the convoy's radio crackled, and the same robotic voice from the emergency alert spoke. "We regret to inform you containment has failed. If you are still in the area, may God help you." A soldier whispered, voice hollow, "They're nuking it." My breath caught as a blinding white light erupted behind us, swallowing the skyline. The shockwave hit like a fist to the chest, my lungs collapsing inward as the ground beneath us cracked, spiderwebbing across the pavement. A towering mushroom cloud rose, unnatural and monstrous, consuming the town in an instant. Buildings, streets, everything I'd known my entire life, gone, reduced to ash and dust. The truck sped on, the soldiers frozen, their eyes reflecting the inferno behind us. No one spoke, there was nothing to say. The monster's final screech lingered in my ears, drowned by the roar of the blast. I stared at the devastation. My home erased in a heartbeat. The convoy didn't slow, carrying us away from the smoldering ruins. Guilt gnawed at me, Ryan, the neighbors, everyone left behind, but survival was all I had now. The world blurred into a haze of smoke and fire, the weight of loss pressing against my chest. The town was no more, and with it, any hope of answers. Only the empty road ahead remained, stretching into a dark, uncertain future. Days later, when the fires finally smoldered into ash and the smoke lifted from the skyline, the city looked like a corpse. Entire blocks had been flattened, steel twisted like vines, glass reduced to sand. Rescue teams moved carefully through the ruins, their voices hushed. As though speaking too loudly might wake what had torn everything apart, they found survivors, just a handful, huddled in basements, subway tunnels, or beneath collapsed beams. Most were too weak to speak, their eyes vacant, as if their souls had been stripped away. No one talked about fighting back. No one asked where the military had gone. All they spoke of were the sounds, the screams, the crashes, the roars that split the night apart. Ryan's name was never on the survivor lists. Neither was mine. To the world outside, we were just more victims swallowed by the catastrophe. But people whispered about us. About two figures seen running through the flames, desperately clinging to life while the city fell. Some swore they saw us fighting back, even striking the monster with scavenged weapons. Others claimed we led groups of civilians to safety before vanishing into the inferno. I don't know if those stories were born from hope or guilt, but they spread like wildfire among the displaced. The government moved quickly, fencing off the city and labeling it an unrecoverable disaster zone. They said the devastation was caused by a chemical explosion. A chain reaction of unstable fuels and munitions. No one outside the ruins believed it. You don't explain away entire neighborhoods leveled in seconds, or bodies broken beyond recognition, with the word accident. Rumors flourished in the vacuum of truth. Some insisted the creature was an experiment gone wrong, a weapon the military had been developing deep underground. Others swore it was something older, something pulled from beneath the earth or drawn from another world by human arrogance. A few whispered it wasn't the only one. That somewhere, in other cities, other shadows had stirred, the survivors carried their own scars. Night after night, they dreamed of that roar, waking in cold sweats with ears ringing. Convinced the sound had followed them. Some said they could still feel tremors under their feet, faint but steady, as if the earth remembered what had walked upon it. I sometimes imagine what Ryan would have thought if he had lived to see the aftermath. He probably would have scoffed at the government's explanation, laughed bitterly at the cover-ups, and demanded the truth. But the truth feels irrelevant now. Whether it was a monster born of science, myth, or something in between, the result is the same, an empty city, sealed off like a wound no one dares reopen, yet even sealed wounds can fester. People will keep asking questions. Survivors will keep whispering. And somewhere, beneath the silence, I can't shake the feeling that it's still out there, waiting, watching, biding its time until the world forgets enough to let it return.